collaborations are always fun. At least that's what I'm obligated to say according to this contract. But even though, are they wrong? I mean, who doesn't want to see one of their favorite series team up with, I don't know, their other favorite series in some sort of crossover matchup? Or even just a character you like on the front of a soda can or something. Well, concerning specifically the Five Nights at Freddy's series, this actually isn't the most common occurrence ever, at least compared to other licenses like it. Coming from series creator, Sock Cotton or something like that. The brand integrity is the most important thing for me, and keeping everything feeling like it belongs, and so that's really been my only hesitancy. Yeah. Well, yes, this series has definitely warmed up a bit to even the concept of like a video game crossover. It's always sort of baffled me that it's kind of kept a small presence with established brands, especially for just how big this series is. So I wanted to actually look back at essentially what is every single time the series has ever officially had a collaboration or crossover of sorts with another company, license, video game, etc. With the sole exception of merchandise, it's kind of too hard to distinguish some of these things as either just collaborations, actual crossovers, or even just general licensed merchandise at that, which also is just never really all that fun to talk about anyway, so they're all out of here. For the most part, at least, this list was kind of hard to compile together. And, of course, any absurdly obvious ones, those are just, you get the point. With all that said, I'm gonna talk about it now. At this point, I feel like it's pretty commonly known now that the very first official crossover concerning like anything Five Nights at Freddy's related at all came to a little indie game called Creepy Castle. In fact, it's probably one of the only reasons this game is unfortunately remembered now. Developed and released on Halloween of 2016 by a small game dev team called Doptera, Creepy Castle started as an ambitious Kickstarter project for a retro-looking adventure RPG. I know that word gets overused, but the creator said it himself, okay? Specifically in this Kickstarter page, which albeit was teased all the way back in September of 2014, just a couple months after FNAF 1's release, Chica from the very first Five Nights at Freddy's title was promised to be featured as a playable character here. Of course, all with the permission of Scott Cawthon himself. While Chica might seem like a weird inclusion at first, along with a lot of the other cameo characters in this game, given a blog post written by essentially the creator of Creepy Castle, Zach, he wanted to include characters that quote-unquote were a little off the beaten path, so to speak. I don't know if it's just me, but it's kind of crazy to think that Chica was this unpopular even like a month or so after the first game's release. Anyway, Chica is unlockable here in the very next section after beating the main story, named Ghostly Mystery or just Scenario 2, specifically by falling down a ledge by the left side of this like little enemy dude here. By literally crashing yourself down a few short ledges, you'll eventually encounter a door that takes you to this game's recreation of the FNAF 1 office, and by pressing forward a couple steps onward, also encountering Chica. Considering the other bosses in this specific scenario, she is quite tough, especially with the fact that cameo characters here get to use special attacks, hers being this giant pizza cutter, of course. But once defeated, she is unlocked and fully playable in any of the game's different free play modes. Unfortunately though, just like every other playable character in this entire game, besides literally one of them, she controls exactly the same. Besides her key visual, dual sprites, and again, the pizza cutter special attack, nothing is different here for any other character. Well, I guess besides this ending screen for Ghostly Mystery's free play mode, which is Chica saving Moth, who is a moth. Yes, I haven't mentioned it yet, but the characters' names for this game might actually rival Scott Cawthon's. You wouldn't believe some of these. Besides that, that's really all that Five Nights at Freddy's has to offer here. But just on its own, this game was a really fun time to go through. And I really just scratched the surface here. There was supposedly plans for a Season 2 for this game as well, but due to what most people assume is a lack of interest with the game's producers, being not Nicholas, they don't have a good reputation for these sorts of things, this all never came to fruition, and most of the developer team just kind of disappeared along with it. While Creepy Castle, at least I think, technically counts as FNAF's first actual crossover, again, remember, Chica was teased all the way back in 2014, the series' FrightDome appearance kinda counts as its close second. For those unfamiliar, the FrightDome used to act as a big Halloween event in the Circus Hotel of Las Vegas, with the whole thing being run by a guy with basically a lot of inside movie connections, which allowed lots of differently themed haunted houses to be featured here with big licenses attached to run annually. One of these somehow being Five Nights at Freddy's. That's right, FNAF was real. for around like a month or so for the Halloween season of 2016. Concerning the actual haunted house itself, everything seemed to be mostly based on the appearance of the first game, involving all the character costumes, general attraction, and whatnot. In fact, there's a sole YouTube video online showing basically the entire layout of the haunt, including an entrance, a whole show stage, an office area, prize corner, even a pirate's cove, kinda, where presumably actors in costume would come around and give you a little scare sometimes. This was all a pretty big deal for the time, if you couldn't imagine, with Scott even releasing a Steam discussion post announcing the whole thing happening and even flying a few YouTubers over. Well, I'll be honest, a lot of the information surrounding the event isn't exactly the most well-documented thing that's happened in the series' history online. It still stands as probably one of the coolest real-life events that FNAF has ever had. I just wouldn't really know because I never went. While FrightDome isn't necessarily up and running like it used to, something tells me that Five Nights at Freddy's, being like a haunted house attraction, isn't entirely a dead and void concept. In fact, I'm going to talk about another one right now. The Five Nights at Freddy's Dark Ride attraction was an officially licensed concept created by Sally Corporation for basically exactly what it sounds like, a mini theme park ride entirely based on ideas coming from the Five Nights at Freddy's series. Unfortunately, this only really exists in the form of concept art and interviews about the potential offerings of the ride, as no buyer was surprisingly ever attained for it.
With my handy dandy little Five Nights at Freddy's zapper.
Although, hey, I mean, these concepts look really cool. Even the idea of an interactive attraction like this that you get to experience with 3 other people staying at a theme park year-round is something that I'm surprised hasn't already happened yet. If you somehow haven't seen it here, easily the biggest eye-catcher for this event was this giant Foxy statue. Made it almost 1-to-1 accuracy of the official Funko figure for some reason. It's actually pretty cool. Although, like I said previously, this exists solely as a concept. No actual attraction was ever made for this, and probably never will. But hey, I mean, I still got my hopes up. Maybe we'll see a horror attraction for this series again on this list. Who knows? But for now, we're talking about Rec Room. Yeah, so as part of a promotion with FNAF AR special delivery of all things on a 4th of July weekend, of course, Rec Room had an exclusive special limited time cosmetic tied to the FNAF brand that was attainable for free here. Specifically, this black hoodie that was also purchasable in real life, just in a now completely defunct FNAF AR store website. From what it seems, simply entering the main rec center would get you this same shirt for freezies. So yeah, not really much to this one either. Here's one you probably forgot about. I know I did. In mid-2021, it was revealed that Five Nights at Freddy's was going to be featured as NFTs, coming from a wax blockchain. However, as you'd imagine, the outrage from the community led Scott to, at first question what they were even about, then slightly defend his choice of the company, essentially saying they were more eco-friendly, and then swiftly cutting his ties with the collaboration. We didn't even really get to see what they look like, but that's okay with me. Another one of my personal favorites and probably funniest inclusions on this list is that Waze, yes, the GPS driving navigation app, technically includes a FNAF collaboration of sorts. Specifically, that hand unit, the tutorial voice from the series, can guide literally where you're driving on the road. Andy Field, the official voice actor featured in like numerous games in the series at this point, had lent his voice for what I'd assume is an official collaboration with the series. I mean, it says FNAF like right there. To guide drivers on where they're, hopefully going. There are some fun voice lines mixed in here too.
We're ready to roll. Drive safely, and remember, you are the face of Fazbear Pizza. Heavy traffic reported ahead. It's a good time for some pizza.
Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Delivery is, again, something I honestly kind of forgot about. If you didn't know, back in June of 2022, it was revealed that Virtual Dining Concepts, the same company behind Mr. Beast Burger, had planned to launch a virtual menu that sold legit official Five Nights at Freddy's pizza to different restaurant chains. A business model commonly referred to as ghost kitchens. While the actual offers and deals they served have never been revealed to my knowledge, this was going to be like an actual thing. With an official Twitter account made, a small website, and a whole newsletter that restaurants could sign up with. You can even see its little icon on their company's page. However, well, my use of the past tense here has all but revealed that, yeah, this was something that was kind of quietly swept under the rug, with no official statements made about its whereabouts, and I mean, this Twitter account has only posted like 3 things about 3 years ago now. Snapchat, yes, Snapchat, also did a collaboration of sorts with FNAF, on 2 separate occasions actually. One in 2019 with the release of FNAF AR, which, as you'd probably expect, just included 2 face filters of Freddy and Circus Baby, although these aren't accessible anymore, I can't use them. And one that was promoted for the first film, which is, yeah, slightly more interesting, I guess. The filter just involved placing a cupcake in front of you, with this HUD very reminiscent of the games, obviously, in which a couple animatronics would literally just appear and jump scare you. Flipping the camera would also just, make them jump scare you. However, I think this is the only instance of like 3D scans being uploaded to the animatronics specifically from the film, so that's kind of neat, I guess. Actually, speaking of the first film, there was a surprisingly small amount of crossover promo made for it. Like, besides the Snapchat filter and I guess the peacock profile icons, the only actual physical crossover I can think of that came from it were mostly pizza box shaped cardboard boxes. From what it looks like, Insomniac Cookies, select AMC's and Regal Theaters, Spinato's Pizzeria, and even New York Comic Con's special Blumhouse panel offered pizza boxes that were at the very least either stylized or just taken straight from the first film's iteration of the pizza box, seen in literally any scene from the pizzeria's kitchen. While, most of them looked practically identical to one another, AMC's also offered smaller, more rectangular shaped pizza boxes for smaller pizzas, as you'd imagine. Dave & Buster's technically also did a collaboration, mostly involving deals on pizzas and general food, but also including these power cards featuring different characters on them. It seemed that each week leading up to the film's release, you could also collect an additional trading card with a new animatronic on it as well, somehow. So, basically just pictures, but I appreciate the theming, at least. Remember when I said we might be seeing horror attractions for this series later on in this list? Yeah, we're here somehow. To the surprise of many, it was revealed that an officially licensed Five Nights at Freddy's pop-up attraction from SpaceToon event was being held in Saudi Arabia, specifically in Boulevard City. Yes, this is supposedly licensed somewhat by Scott Cawthon, despite the unnerving emotions some of these images bring to me. Honestly, from what I can tell, it does look fairly well done, and their later released Security Breach version that was licensed this year looked like a major improvement all around. I mean, just look at the outside entrances to this place. This looks crazy. I'm assuming much like FrightDome, it involved actors in costumes scaring our event attendees, with vague locations and events from the games. Vague might be the right word here, yeah. Beyond that, I'm not really gonna go into the nitty-gritty details of these events. I'll be honest, I just don't really know all that much about them, but FNAF, this is licensed and a collaboration. Yeah, you get it. Sort of like how the pizza delivery collab went down, another strange instance of an official collaboration that wasn't really elaborated all that much on was under a Roblox game called FNAF Survival Crew. And when I say wasn't really elaborated on, I mean this thing was up for about 2 whole hours before being instantly shut down and essentially never talked about again. Five Nights at Freddy's Survival Crew was an official Roblox game created by Metaverse team Fright. Their other projects are fantastic, by the way, that acted very close in line to something like Dead by Daylight, where users could play as both the animatronics or security guards, and yeah, they do their thing. Problem is, the only way that people actually experienced this experience, whatever they're called now, is from an extremely broken beta build of the game, as somehow from Sock Cotton's words himself. Apparently, there was a huge misunderstanding when I approved the skin, and it was interpreted as, release the game. Yeah. Yes, this was the explanation for why the game looked the way it did and also played the way it did. Soon after this accidental release, it seems Scott had instructed the team to basically start from scratch all over again, and actually that's where we are today. Due to literally another collaboration opportunity that I haven't talked about just yet, I'm fairly certain that this won't see release, ever, if I'm being honest. And I honestly think it's for the best. This looked like a giant cash grab. Okay, finally I get to talk about something with a little more substance to it. No offense, Spinato's Pizzeria. I respect the effort, truly. First revealed in late April of 2024, along with the main game itself, Funko Fusion was heavily advertising the fact that Five Nights at Freddy's would be officially included in the game in, some sort of capacity. I mean, he's on the cover. For those who don't already know, Funko Fusion, to its core, is much like those early LEGO games in a way, focusing on puzzles and collectibles from locations that mimic certain licenses and franchises, also allowing you to play as those same characters from either their own series or completely different ones. The twist with this game is, that it feels a lot more soulless, somehow. Unlike the majority of licenses in this game, Five Nights at Freddy's is only featured here as a cameo level, meaning it's essentially just a smaller bonus level inside of another series' campaign, specifically hidden away in Scott Pilgrim's third section of all things, inside of this, random-ass pizzeria spot. No, but hold on now. Did you really think it was gonna be that easy to access the thing that you actually probably wanted to play first? Because, yeah, you're sorely mistaken, as you'll have to go through a bit of a scavenger hunt to actually get your Freddy Fazbear fix in. Collecting, at the very least, these batteries from the first Jurassic World level to, like, open the door, and the blacklight camera from Hot Fuzz to investigate a dude who, like, slipped on marinara sauce or something, I don't know. Getting into the level itself, I mean, it's kind of cool, I guess, on a surface level at least, as it aims to sort of replicate the usual night progression from the games. But it comes across feeling a lot more tedious. Here, instead of just sitting in an office all night, you need to use these monitor stations set up in 3 different rooms in the pizzeria that'll give you access to the security cameras, with one of these locations hiding away a time token that is used to, like, actually progress through the nights here. Yeah, this is essentially the main basis of the gameplay. Get a key card that opens up a room with a new monitor system, look for tokens on these same camera thingies, you get those tokens, and yeah, progress to the next night. Of course, all while avoiding as much trouble as possible. For some reason, Chica will always be the first animatronic you encounter here, chilling in the kitchen for the entire remainder of the night, throwing a constant amount of cupcakes at you, like, relentlessly. Leaving this room, however, which is kind of what you're supposed to do, as there's nothing to do here, leaves you open to her main heat-seeking cupcake, which will occasionally just blow up your cameras. Although sometimes it just doesn't. I don't know why. Well, the first couple of nights kind of just revolve around you making sure that each camera has a battery plugged into it, as the wandering cupcake will literally sacrifice his own life for it. The next few nights can become a little, well, I mean, the exact same. They're all practically the same, just as more tedious. Just as everybody should know by now, the difficulty starts to ramp up after each night in the original Five Nights at Freddy's games. This game translates basically what I just said into throwing Freddy, Bonnie, lots of endoskeletons, and Foxy, mixed with the cupcake, can't forget him, all at you at once while progressing through the exact same goal. Bonnie and Freddy act largely the same in that they slowly walk around the pizzeria, will sometimes wait for you in rooms and even on the cameras to actively disable them, but aren't really that much of a threat here. Chica, like I said, just stays in the kitchen the entire night throwing the same cupcakes at you, and Foxy. Foxy. For some reason, they decided to make him just an extremely fast version of Freddy and Bonnie, who appears constantly throughout the later nights, which means if you haven't progressed through a lot of levels so far, that is opening every room in the pizzeria, this becomes super difficult, super fast. The only way to stop him is by occasionally checking Pirate's Cove, but nobody is doing that here. The cameras suck. They suck. I'm not using these besides just spamming them to get the stupid time token anyway. Doesn't help that Bonnie can also open vent covers in the pizzeria that allow swarms of endoskeletons with sometimes these like nightmare variants after you for the rest of the night as well. This all culminates in a cameo level that is just like really annoying to go through. The collectibles here are nothing special either. It seems every level kind of has the same ones anyway, with the exclusion of the Phaser Blaster, but it's a gun. Besides all that and a few really questionable additions to this level, like actually though, why was this added? Is this Scott Cawthon's like contractual obligated lore drop in a Funko fucking Fusion? There's really not all that much to do here anymore. At least inside the physical level, because upon completion, you're granted with 2 new characters, depending on how many collectibles you got. Foxy and Freddy Fazbear himself, who's only unlocked after getting every silver crown in this cameo level. Surprisingly, not the easiest feat in the world, actually. Much like every other character in the game, they unfortunately play practically the exact same, given the same formulaic melee plus shootable weapon thing they'll have. Foxy brandishing this like fun pirate cannon that shoots pizza sauce, and Freddy having this like pizza oven gun. I mean, they both look pretty funny, so I'm not mad. They're both voiced by Kellengoff, if this counts as voicing them, and come with a few skins too, but I mean, they're all just recolors, you know, it's a Funko game, what do you really expect? Opinions of the actual game aside, I mean, if you could tell, I'm not really the biggest fan of it. This level is fine, and at least offers a welcome change to the general gameplay that this game offers. Using gameplay in these like really big quotation marks, by the way. As part of the series' 10th year anniversary, Five Nights at Freddy's announced it was collaborating in another video game crossover, this time with the game Dead by Daylight, an asymmetrical multiplayer horror game to some, the fourth layer of hell for others. It's not really an exaggeration to say that this was probably the most hyped up chapter release for Dead by Daylight up to this point. And I say that as someone who's played this game for way too long to be considered normal. While the contents of which weren't exactly spilled to us that early on, it was later announced, almost a year later actually, that Springtrap would be featured as one of the game's titular killers, and Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria was to be a physical map in the game, both kind of standard for chapter releases up to that point. Springtrap's model, completely sculpted from the ground up, is a much more realistic take on the character. Well, at least it feels as believable as a bear trap fursuit holstering a half-dead British serial killer guy could possibly get. I mean, his corpse is practically completely visible in between the small seams of the suit. They give this small detail, at least in terms of what's meant to actually be seen in the original Five Nights at Freddy's 3, a lot of attention here. It's pretty cool. And all this is without even mentioning my personal favorite touch, that being that they actually got PJ Haywood to reprise his role as William Afton in this game, whose, mind you, last appearance as this character would have been all the way back in FNAF AR. And without a doubt, this is probably the best he's ever sounded.
Play with fire, and you'll get burned.
He had such a bubbling personality to him here. It truly sounds like William is just reveling in this endless loop of torturing other people. Here's some of my personal favorite lines.
The party begins now. I promise a fun time. Great atmosphere. I'm so sorry. I'm going to enjoy this. Game over.
Aesthetic-wise, the map that was released along with them is, a little underwhelming in terms of everything else here. It's sort of just a small pizzeria in the middle of a pre-existing map, essentially. But I do like how detailed and unique the location is. There's a lot of small Easter eggs and fun little gimmicks that make it interesting enough. And as a bonus, most of the original survivors from the game got these teal t-shirts with a custom Fazbear logo stapled onto it. Concerning our killer, Springtrap's main gimmick, involving his actual gameplay, primarily revolves around a throwable fire axe. Oh, as he's always known to do. Seriously though, this is definitely the least accurate aspect of this entire package. I'm pretty sure he's never even held an axe in anything else ever. But I don't know, once you start to think about it, it's pretty clear why this was done. Springtrap, from his initial piece of source material, doesn't really have any direct powers, besides technically sort of being alive still, and the phantoms, which act more as distractions than anything else. So giving Springtrap an easy to understand power for the incoming wave of new Dead by Daylighters, which, spoiler alert, did happen, makes him a killer that won't be too frustrating to play as, or against, even in the long term. I also think it's important to remember that Scott Cawthon was heavily involved in this entire collaboration process. If he really didn't think Springtrap liked to chuck sparkly fire axes at people, then I don't know, you just make his own Dead by Daylight. Wait, never mind. I didn't mean to say that. His secondary power, which is much more in line with the games, concerns security doors that allow Springtrap and even survivors to travel between an office to get to a completely different area of the map. If they want, survivors can also use these doors as cameras, with a HUD that's extremely familiar looking, that can reveal Springtrap to every player on the map if you're looking at him for a set amount of time. While this is all a cool inclusion, of course, it gets a little watered down by the fact that survivors kind of stopped using these all that much outside the first couple weeks he was added. There's really not that much of incentive to use the cameras against him, and teleporting through the doors could kind of severely cost you if caught. Which means this just kind of acts as a watered down teleportability for good old Willy. With good old Willy came a few extra skins you could apply to him, with a bit of leftover cash that you probably would have spent on Survival Crew's golden Freddy skin. Well, two of the ones right now are kind of just repurposed FNAF AR cosmetics, although they do look much better than their original counterparts. The rest are a lot more interesting. One of the biggest selling points that came with this chapter, or at least it was definitely advertised like it, was that Matthew Lillard's iteration of William Afton from the first film was going to be a legendary skin for Springtrap, which, if you don't know, in Dead by Daylight terms, almost acts as a different character, sorta. He's fitted with a complete rehaul of Springtrap's dialogue, all of course coming from Matthew Lillard himself, and a given likeness for the character's face to match as well. A fun fact, he's also one of the very few killers in the game to have specific voice lines when interacting with Nicolas Cage.
10 out of 10, nice performance. What's your deal, Cage?
Besides that, I think the only real fault of this skin comes with the fact that he won't have a mask while you're playing. Unless this becomes some sort of toggleable feature in the future, I kind of doubt it, you're essentially playing as Matthew Lillard in a giant Spring Bonnie bodysuit with a Also, literally the biggest knife I've ever seen. His second legendary is Glitch Trap, who mainly appears in Help Wanted, but you already knew that. His appearance is very similar to his initial model, just with altered proportions and a little bit of a beer belly, honestly. Just like the Yellow Rabbit, his skin also features completely new voice lines, which mainly consist of like garbled screams and glitchy growling sounds. The effect on his knife is like sick. Same goes with a lot of his unique animations here, especially his lobby one. The last skin that I haven't mentioned yet is the game's take on a blighted version of Springtrap, which is like a... Actually, I have no idea how to explain it. It's an evil orange juice thing from the game. It's usually meant to accentuate core elements of a character's appearance or characteristic in ways that are extremely grotesque, so... yeah, I think they accomplished all that here. I will say this is a little bit overpriced. Overall, I'd say on gameplay side, he's kept his status as a really good starter killer for the game. And as for the collaboration as a whole, again, one of the very few actual video game crossovers that the series has done, at least so far, it's performed really faithfully. Even if it's not like 100% accurate all around, he still like throws fire axes at people. As part of this year's Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, Five Nights at Freddy's, specifically the rendition of the series from the first film, officially appeared as an actual haunted house that guests could fully walk through. I know this because I actually got to go this time. The attraction itself is basically a guided rerun of the film from Blumhouse, almost taking you scene through scene of basically anything scary that happened inside the pizzeria. So really not all that much. A lot of the technical work and animatronics especially are the true stars here. It's really something you kind of have to experience for yourself, honestly, especially with the whole starting stage area. That part's insane. Along with it, Universal also included a small pop-up restaurant that actually served pizza. And a cupcake. They were both as good as they looked. Of course, there were loads of exclusive merchandise specifically for the event as well, some of which being like really cool, with art made specifically for the merch in question. Others are these like freeze-dried candy corn packs. I don't even know why I bought this. I'm never opening this ever. Well, this, wasn't technically FNAF's first venture into becoming a haunted house attraction of sorts. It's really cool to see it be such a big event at one of the most popular haunted house attractions like in the world. I'd love to see this revamped for the film's sequel, like in a year or two, especially with a few roaming scare actors or pop-ups this time around, because return is something that's definitely going to happen one way or another, let's just be honest. Unfortunately, the last actual video game crossover we have comes from the Coca-Cola company? The Haunted Fanta Factory acted as an incredibly short promotional mobile game designed to simply advertise Fanta's line of scary soda drinks for Halloween of this year. Of course, as many already know by now, the original orange-flavored Fanta, spanning from essentially all of September and October of 2025, featured Freddy Fazbear's ugly mug on it, along with a few other horror icons for their other flavors. This game, right to its core, definitely feels like an advertisement. It's as basic of a platformer that I think you could literally possibly create. You simply have to fetch a certain amount of Fanta soda cans for each given level in order to reach the next, all while dodging obstacles and eventually, yes, the guys on the front of the Fanta cans as well. As you'd assume, Freddy makes an appearance here too, specifically on the 4th level of the game, acting just like the rest of them. He's unfortunately kind of just a normal basic enemy here. There also supposedly was a whack-a-mole minigame that came out a bit later afterward that I never got the chance to play. I haven't even seen any footage of this online either, but it seems that all the enemies would simply just pop up and you'd have to like tap them or something, with Freddy being featured here as well, obviously. And finally, we get to the collaborations and crossovers involving Five Nights at Freddy's 2. The film, not the game. It seems that Universal had sort of learned from their past mistake of not really going all out for promotion for the first film, because they kind of went overboard for the sequel. Seriously, I've really never seen this many different popcorn buckets for a singular film release before, like, good God. But we're not here to talk about that, as I believe that these buckets are kind of just covering up as collectible pieces of merchandise in their own right, anyway. Also worked as a cop-out for my wallet. It was looking a bit dry. Speaking of things that are dry, Popeyes, yeah, the chicken fast food place, had released what's essentially a Freddy Fazbear meal to coincide with, of course, the second film. You knew that. Besides a few cool commercials here and there, the real prize was through the exclusive limited time menu options, which included 3 garlic Parmesan chicken tenders, a cup of cheesy bites, and most importantly, an actual cupcake. Kinda. I don't think this really qualifies as one, but I mean, hey, can't knock it till you try it, right? Again, in promotion for the second film, Discord, and probably the lamest official crossover here, I'd be very surprised if anything ever touts this one, ran a promotional ad segment for a pretty brief amount of time in November, where you could earn a very little amount of Discord orbs, whatever that means, by simply watching a short promo trailer for the film. I'm serious, this is it. There's nothing else here. Snapchat has also got another shot for promotion of the sequel, albeit in practically a complete reskin of its first time around. Yeah, it's pretty much the same as before, even still involving placing down an animatronic wherein another appears and they both jump scare you. The biggest difference, besides the loss of the game accurate HUD, is the front face camera displays the puppets ever so slightly getting closer and closer till you get, jump scared. And also turned into the weird puppet possessed faces that I don't know the full context of yet because the movie's not out just yet. Still pretty cool though to get these strange 3D models of the characters that I think are actually again scanned from the film. Okay, so while I was making this, of course, another collaboration came out, of course. This one somehow probably being worse than the Discord one. It's simply put another Roblox game that plays itself more like an advertisement. I'm putting in the most literal interpretation of that sentence that can be conveyed. It's literally an advertisement. At least Discord gave you something, I don't know. And last, but certainly not least, the most recent direct crossover that Five Nights at Freddy's has technically participated in is Reddit. Yeah, it's a few avatar costumes you can decorate your little Reddit avatar character guy with, all being the toy animatronics featured from the film. Wow. There were a lot of these actually. Some I'd honestly completely forgotten about, or ones that I sort of wish I could forget about. Going back to the beginning though, does Sock Cotton's statement really hold true? Is he really as careful to protect his brand as much as he says he is? I don't know, maybe? Just based off how much outreach involving different collaborations has just come from the second film alone, I'd say that this list is definitely going to grow a lot bigger than it did, even just a few years ago now. And I didn't even include merchandise here. God, could you imagine if I did? But then again, I think the series' choices of picking very hilarious collaboration opportunities give it its own weird charm in a way. But, I can't even look up this series anymore on Google. I think I start hallucinating. Please tell me you guys saw that.